Hello everybody and welcome to this week's Motor Trade Radio podcast powered by eBay Motors Group. It is Saturday the 15th of October and you're joined by myself, Philip Northard.
And me, Curtis Hutchinson. This is episode 55, season 8 of Motor Trade Radio, bringing you all the chatter that matters. Once again, we've gathered together this week's big car retailing stories across the franchised and independent sectors for you to enjoy all in one place, on demand, on your podcast feed.
So we've got some cracking headlines this week and some good research done by a couple of them and some acquisitions. But first, we must go to the shout-outs and we've got to say congratulations to all the finalists and the winners to this week's Car Dealer Power Awards 2022 that revealed the best manufacturer to represent and the best car dealer, suppliers to the business, with lots voted by the dealers. And without trying to go through each of the winners and commended, there is a great YouTube video that James Baggett and Batch has done, going through the winners and the highly commended. It was done virtually, and obviously interviewed some of the winners as well. So I do recommend that you go over to watch that. It's only about 40 minutes, and it's a good little watch actually, and you can see some of the winners and runners up on there.
Yeah, it's a great video, and that they are a good double act, aren't they?
Yes, yeah. They've got that to a T now, haven't they? I think they felt it was a brilliant setting as well. I think they were at Sytner's Land Rover from memory. So
probably in Portsmouth somewhere, I suspect.
yes. So do check that out. It's on YouTube. It's about 40 minutes long, and watch that one.
And talking about awards, a shout out for Julian Stockton, sales director of Uttoxeter-based Angus McKinnon, and friend of the podcast, who got in touch with us during the week to let us know about a rather successful night he had at the Motor Trader Independent Dealers Awards. Now, we did cover the awards last week, but we did make the point that there were too many categories to go into great detail. But we'll give Julian a shout out because he had a rather good night, didn't he? He won Independent Dealer of the Year, Independent Community Dealer of the Year, Independent Sales Manager of the Year for Julian himself, and highly commended for the Independent Dealer Customer Care Award. So well done, Julian, and the team. Yeah, that really was a great result.
No, and it is. And to put this in context, I think from memory, it's a single site business. Julian's done a fantastic job since joining there, as you say, with taking on that sales director's role. He's really put that business on the map, in terms of the awards and other things there. So again, check out Julian's LinkedIn profile, and he's a great follower of the podcast, great in the social media space as well. So congratulations to yourself, Julian, and we will catch up soon, hopefully, and all the best to the team.
We've also had a lot of interest in last week's interview with Virtue boss Robert Forrester. Now, Robert joined us to chat about the group's second best first half interims for this year, but he actually stayed for a wider talk about new and used car margins, his acquisition pipeline, and also his thoughts on how the market will perform over the course of Q4. So if you didn't hear last weekend's show, then check it out. And we ran the full interview during the second half of the show, so you can go straight to that if you like.
Yeah, definitely cracking interview, and always value with Robert when he gets on the show and relaxes and we go through stuff. So yeah, do please check that one out. And also this week, Stephen is off his sick bed now. He's testing clear from COVID. After his visit to Dublin, but he's on after the midway break, sharing his men-able moments. So obviously we were at the back end of mental health global national mental health day on Monday, I think it was, and coming out day on Tuesday. I think it's been a busy week for me, I think, with everything going on. So do stay tuned for midway break. We listen for the latest men-able from Stephen Whitton.
And if you'd like to get in touch with us, or if you'd like to come on the show or send us a press release, then do email us at motortraderadio@yahoo.com. You can also join our Motor Trade Radio LinkedIn group and Facebook groups, or follow us on Twitter. So, if you do want to get in touch, please do so using any of those means. So, Phil, headlines this week are from AM, Car Dealer, and Motor Trader. So, starting with cost of living crisis causing customers to keep vehicles longer, according to What Car. High demand for petrol and diesel cars drives buoyant used car market, says Cap HPI. We reveal the latest big name group to represent Chinese EV brand Aura. We've got two acquisitions to report on this week. Car Dealer reports that JCT 600 is exiting from its Stellantis brands, and Judge Service reveals buyers prefer sales staff to be smart rather than casual.
That'll be interesting when we get to that one. What is the definition of smart and what's the definition of casual? I've actually had that from my son in the last week, starting a new job, and he said it says smart casual. What does that mean, Dad?
Yeah, the thing is, the parameters change, don't they? And they've changed a lot over the last 2 years.
They certainly have, and tried to explain it to him. Well, actually, but we'll get to that one at the end. But
So tell me, Phil, are you smart or casual today?
today I'm casual. I think I've been casual. I'm not sure what smart fits me these days. I don't get out much.
Well,
But
today I'm very casual.
oh, nice. Yeah, but what does that mean? Ripped jeans, trainers, t-shirt. Where do we end? Where do we draw the line? But we'll get to that one later. So we're heading over to, as Curtis said there, Car Dealer. And this is around the cost of living. So as the title, cost of living crisis causing customers to keep vehicles longer, What Car warns dealers. And this is from research that they've done, looking at obviously about the impact of the cost of living and what this means from a consumer perspective, whether they're looking at changing their cars as they normally would, or are they thinking of keeping their cars longer until they have a little bit more certainty and understanding of what the cost of living impact will be? So some interesting findings from this one, Curtis.
Yeah, definitely. So it's a survey of 876 in-market buyers, and it's reported that 54% of these buyers are looking to reduce spending on motoring costs during the current crisis. But it actually gets more interesting because it reveals that 78% of motorists impacted by the current situation also said they are now going to hold on to their current car for longer as a result of what's going on in the economy at the moment. And when asked to estimate when they're looking to purchase their next vehicle, 36% of the respondents said in more than 6 months' time. So it really is showing that customers in this survey, not only are they looking to hold on to their present cars, but they're possibly staying out of the market for a little while.
Yeah, and this survey was based on 876 in-market buyers, to gather the data. But again, I mean, it may be that they don't have the choice of waiting with some of the lead times and the availability of cars at the minute. There might not be might be a choice. They might have to wait, Curtis. But as you say, that interesting findings. And Steve Huntington, editor for What Car, said that the cost of living crisis is impacting all areas of the motor trade, from sales to servicing. The crisis couldn't come at a more difficult time, as manufacturers, dealers, suppliers in the country are looking to invest heavily towards electrification in the coming years. An economic recession would slow this investment. So interesting points there made by What Car.
Yeah, there was a stat that really did interest me, and it's 29% of the respondents said they're likely to try to do minor servicing on their vehicles
Mm.
themselves. So this will include things such as oil changes, and this is in order to save costs. But you know, depending on what vintage your car is, doing an oil change isn't necessarily as easy as it used to be on your drive.
Yeah, and I think we talked about this recently, didn't we? The potential impact that have been on after sales, and I think somebody called it out, the risk of people saving money by not having the safety items done on their cars, not having those
Yeah.
winter checks and things like that. That it's not what no, all right, it's not good for the business dealers because they don't get that revenue through after sales, but actually it's potential risk to the consumer if they're not getting the cars serviced and maintained as we enter into the winter months. So yeah, it's an interesting call, this one.
So, next headline is from AM Online, and it's high demand for petrol and diesel cars drives buoyant used car market. So, this is a conversation that AM had with Darren Martin, CAP HBI's Director of Valuations, and of course, regular contributor to the Motor Trade Radio podcast. So, they caught up with him last week for a sort of mid month update on how used values are tracking at the moment. So, listeners will recall that we had Darren on 2 weeks ago, and he said that values over the course of last month actually increased by 0.3%. And that was a bit of a surprise. No one saw that coming. But by the second week of October, that had turned into a 0.2% decline. But Darren says that despite the gloom and doom, in the industry and in the economy, the wider economy, it's only having a limited impact on actual consumer demand in October. So some interesting points here.
Yeah, no, and he does call out that obviously, in terms of that expectations over the market, and makes a point that obviously about that 0.3% there that you said there is, fairly small in terms of that upward movement compared to what they've experienced in the last 18 months. But again, highlights now that you're starting to ease off a little bit, and connected obviously with the previous story there with what car we're saying, with people putting off servicing, people putting off changing their vehicle. But essentially, there's still a significant shortage of used cars entering the vehicle park in the UK and other markets because of the continual headwinds that we're facing in new.
Yeah, and he does talk about some of the best performing market segments, which continues to be some of those hard to come by city cars, which he was talking to us about last time he was on the podcast, but also MPVs, demand for MPVs once again, because we did see that a lot during the various lockdowns, high demand for MPVs. So it looks as though they're coming back onto shopping lists. And there was an interesting point that Darren made that traditionally at this time of the year, as you will know, Phil, that dealers tend to be looking forward and stocking up
Mm.
for January. But Darren's saying that the dealers he's talking to, that's not on the agenda at the moment. That they're looking to replace what's just been sold on the forecourt. So there's no forward planning going on at the moment, and understandably so.
Yeah, no, I can concur with that in conversations I've had, that there is just because you'd normally we always talked about that early buying for the first quarter of the year, getting early in that sort of fourth quarter, that suddenly it's kind of all of a sudden September, October, dealers were thinking about building the stock up ready for the January sales, and it's just not happening. And partly because they're not sure what's happening with the economy, what's happening around consumer demand, and what's happening around used vehicle prices as well. So for that, the 0.2% that Darren cited there in the article, if that continues, you don't want to be buying too many cars too early if we are
Yeah.
going to start to see a slight decrease. And to your point on MPV, I think somebody made a comment the other week that the actual choice of MPVs is reducing new, because people are it's
Yeah.
moving over to the SUV, the small crossovers, and actual true seven-seater MPVs are getting fewer. And I think that was even called out on the car dealer awards evening, because Dacia got a highly commended for their MPV, saying that it's a affordable seven-seater to the market. So I think there's a lot going on at the minute.
So next headline is with car dealer, and it's Lookers becomes latest dealer to sell Chinese EV, GWM, Aura, Funky Cat. So long headline
Yeah.
there, but this really follows on from a story that we reported on probably just a month or so ago about Peter Vardy Group becoming the first UK dealer to represent Aura, and they're opening a site in Glasgow, followed by other sites. So Aura is part of Great Wall Motors. So, a big Chinese specialist EV car manufacturer. And look, as it's interesting, it's significant that we are seeing some big dealer groups now signing up to new Chinese brands making their UK debuts.
Yeah, and you think about how long it was, where long ago that it was when people were talking about the Chinese market, when they were thinking of coming, and then suddenly it's not when it's not if they come in, it's when they come in, and then since then the Pendragon conversations with BYD and the others, and the acceleration that we've seen in recent years with MG in the UK, but this is now a continual story, isn't it, with what's happening with these new entrants and to sort of how that dealer group operates with these new Chinese brands. And I know Auto Retail have just done a webinar this week on that marketplace and what it looks like and what to expect, and talking about what the dealers should be considering. But as you say there, I mean, there's a quote here from Duncan McPhee, who's Looker's COO, and he said that a real game changer for the UK's EV marketplace, the Aura Funky Cat comes with an exceptional range, outstanding driver-focused features, and a price point which many buyers will see attractive. Now, we've discussed this before about price points, haven't we? And the average price of a new EV and what's happening in the used market around EVs, but these start at just over 31 and just short of 32,000 at 31,995 there for the first edition. So that entry price point is coming down, isn't it now?
It is, yeah, and this will be a significant car because of its size. So it's up against models like the Mini Electric and the Fiat 500 Electric, and with a range of 193 odd miles, it will have it will have a lot of interest in the UK.
And spec, I mean, we always talk about Chinese brands and the spec. They say that it comes with 4 colours from launch. It's got contrasting roof colours. Specification includes facial recognition. You've got that on your car, Curtis.
I've just about got it on my phone.
Voice recognition, 360-degree cameras, and adaptive cruise control as standard. So that's kind of showing you where this Chinese market is heading with these fully loaded, fully spec'd vehicles at an entry price that will become more affordable for many users.
Yeah, I've said it before and I'll say it again. I'm still not convinced by the name, though.
I'm not either, but maybe we'll get used to it.
We will.
Yeah.
So you're listening to All the Chat that Matters on Motor Trade Radio, powered by eBay Motors Group. This is your weekly one-stop shop for all the biggest car retailing headlines from across the media, available on demand wherever you are on your podcast feed. Next up is a welcome return to our mental health wellness guru, Stephen Whitton, who is back on top form after a bout of COVID, which has got him thinking about anxiety.
Yeah, hi guys. Thanks for having me back for another Men Able Moments. Apologies that I missed last week, as you rightly pointed out, Phil. I took myself off to Dublin for this amazing conference, and I think we'd all got a bit complacent that we thought COVID was over. And it is not by a very long chalk, because, I got it, along with about 75% of the people that attended the conference. And so I want to talk about that a little bit today, COVID and just general anxiety overall, because I tell you what that COVID thing did for me was gave me a massive wake-up call, which is ironic because I slept through most of it. But you know what I mean. I literally got back, dumped my stuff, and then went from bed to sofa over the period of about 5 days, and just couldn't muster the energy to do anything, not even think straight, and I had brain fog and everything. And the wake-up call was that by the end of it, I was starting to think, do you know what? I spend most of my time really beating myself up about not being productive, not being efficient, not making enough calls, not speaking to people, not getting out and about, whatever it might be, whatever your version of that is, kind of insert productivity here kind of thing. But for me, it really was a wake up to say, you've got to listen to your body. And in my case, what I thought was just coldy, flu-y symptoms for the first few days, that went fairly rapidly, if I'm honest. And then I just became exhausted, and it really, really took me by surprise. So, yeah, just be aware of the habit that probably most of us are in, which is this whole thing of needing to be productive, needing to be out there, having an internet presence that can't live without us and all of that stuff. But at the end of the day, your body is going to tell you when you've had enough. And I didn't think I was particularly burnt out or anything like that, but just goes to show how something can creep up on you and take it out of you in that way. Now, on the anxiety front, I did get to the back end of that feeling a bit rough. And if I'm honest, I started getting glued to the BBC News channel. And I don't know why I did that, because all it did was raised my anxiety levels about the future. But not to the point where I got overly anxious, but to the point where I thought, well, we might as well live for today, because we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And that's not meant to sound really down and glum. But since then, I've had a lot of conversations about just general anxiety and the feeling that's out there kind of in the world right now. And even on our leaders forum this week, we was talking about, we're coming into Q4 now. We've got obviously the nights creeping in, so we'll have the clock change. We've got the run up to Christmas. We've got Halloween. We've got all the stuff that's going on in the news about the economy and interest rates and energy prices, the war in Ukraine, and there's just so much out there to be anxious about. And I guess the key thing for me is a lesson that I took from doing one of my talks that I've been going out and delivering recently. And I did one yesterday at a networking group, actually, outside of the automotive industry. And what was fairly evident in there is that at a leader's level in particular, there's a lot of loneliness. There's a lot of people feeling that they're at the top, but they're on their own. They've got no one saying to them, how you doing? How you coping? How you dealing with stuff? And so the overall takeaway from that session that I did yesterday and the feeling amongst that group was, again, let's stand shoulder to shoulder and support each other. Ultimately, we're all human beings. Forget the stripes and the badges and the titles. We're all human beings, and right now we all need as much help and support as possible. So whether that's going through an illness that's crept up on you, like COVID, or whether it's just general anxieties, whatever level you are at, wherever you're at in your business, just please keep being shoulder to shoulder and keeping an eye on each other and being supportive. And as I've said before, you don't have to be qualified in mental health to do that. You can just have a general conversation and just show that you care. As always, you know how to catch hold of me, and I am back with a vengeance on LinkedIn, and the email is stephen.whitton@menable.org, and you feel free to get in touch and let's have a chat. Speak to you soon. Thanks, guys.
Well, another thought-provoking Menable moment from Stephen Whitton, and great to have him back. Great to have him back on. We did miss him last week.
Yeah, he sounded a little bit tired there, but I think he's obviously getting over from a week of COVID. He says he is testing negative now. He says, but it did take the wind out of his sails for a bit. So glad you're well, Stephen. And a great insight again in terms of that mental health and getting people thinking about that anxiety and things with what's going on in the world.
And if you want to get in touch with Stephen, then you can find him online at menable.org. You can email him at stephen.whitton@menable.org, and that's Stephen with a PH, or you can find him on LinkedIn or Twitter.
So heading over to motortrader.com of the first of the acquisitions, and this is Lloyd Motor Group has acquired a business up in the Lake District area. and a
Yeah.
Volvo business near Kendal.
Yes.
So a little bit north for you there, Curtis. But I'm sure you've been that far north before.
Well, before we started recording, you mentioned about going down to Birmingham, and I said, "Well, I can't go down to Birmingham. I've got to go up to
You've got to
Birmingham."
go up.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
there's a definite north-south divide on the podcast, Phil.
There is, and this is a business that PV Dobson has been acquired by Lloyd's Motor Group there up in Kendal. So a nice little business by the looks of it that they purchased there.
Yeah, so Lloyd's is a Cumbria-based group. It has over 30 locations across the north of England and into the Scottish borders, and represents the likes of BMW, Mini, Jaguar Land Rover, Kia, and Ineos
Mm,
as well. Now, it already represents Volvo in Carlisle, which is a site I think it's had for quite a while. So this effectively doubles its Volvo representation, and a good strategic move for the group there.
No, it is, and I think PV Dobson. It's a name that I've been aware of throughout my career. I think they do other things as well, not just car retailing. So yeah, nice little move there. And again, a little bit of a growth there for Lloyd's, because they did sell some businesses quite a few years ago, and obviously focusing on their territory and certain brands. So again, nice little move for them into the further into the Volvo brand.
Yeah, and Lloyd have actually been fairly busy in recent years on the acquisition front. So definitely a group to watch, because June last year they acquired Inchcape's Jaguar Land
Mm,
Rover business in York, and February this year it added the Windermere-based Kia retail group, Rayrig Motors. So as I say, definitely a group to watch there.
definitely. And the second acquisition of this week is Donald's Group takes over Marshall's Kia dealership in Ipswich. So this is, I think this is, if you read the story, this is an expansion, obviously for Donald's there, but this is with Kia exiting from Marshalls following their recent acquisition. The Marshalls Group being acquired there, but yeah, the Kia are moving away, or whichever way that is, with Marshalls there. But yeah, nice little acquisition there for Donald's with yet another Kia business.
Yeah, and as you say, this move actually completes Marshall's exit from the Kia franchise. And for Donald's, this dealership is located on the Ransoms Industrial Estate in Ipswich, and it'll see it joining Donald's existing Kia outlet in Bury St Edmunds. But it's interesting that, as Donald points out, this is very much a homecoming for Kia, because it did actually represent Kia in Ipswich from 2005 to 2008. So when Kia was very much a sort of emergent
Mm.
brand, so a totally different proposition now, because Kia are doing extremely well. I noticed there was a report on one of the websites this week that it was the top selling fleet brand last month. So that's pretty much unprecedented for a Korean brand. So a brand that is going places, and Donald's will be more than pleased to be representing them.
Yeah, and they did win the AM Awards as well, the
Yeah.
Manufacturer of the Year, with the addition of the new Sportage for Kia. And we're just talking before about the Chinese brands. Do you remember the days when we talked about Kia and Hyundai entering the UK market, and whether they'd take off, and whether the UK buyers would accept these Korean brands? And now look at Kia, look at where they are, top awards and things that they're winning. So again, shows where these brands can, if they get it right, the growth opportunities and the relationships with the dealers can exceed.
And on the subject of dealer groups taking on new franchises and exiting franchises, we go over to Car Dealer, and the headline there is JCT 600 confirms site closures as dealer group ends partnership with Stellantis. So this is Car Dealer reporting that JCT 600, has severed ties with Stellantis, resulting in the closure of 5 sites in the north of England. So this really does affect JCT 600's representation of Vauxhall, Peugeot, and Citroen, especially within Bradford in Sticker Lane, where they've represented all three brands.
Yeah, I mean, they should really rename Sticker Lane to JCT Lane, if I'm honest with you. If anybody is aware of the area and aware of Sticker Lane, it is, every business up there is really dominated by JCT. And obviously with Jack and John Tordoff coming from that area. But yeah, it's quite an interesting one, this one, because it will leave a few gaps on that road, in
Yes.
fairness, and it'll be interesting to see whether they do put other brands in there, or whether they open up as used operations, or what they do there. But they're obviously looking at making changes. I mean, John Tordoff is quoted in the piece. He's the chief executive of JCT. Said that given the huge global changes in recent years, we have to ensure that the business is fit for future purpose in the future. So it's you can see where they're making some probably tough decisions on this, because, as you said, they've represented some of these brands for a long time, and they've become synonymous in the area for representing those brands in the northern area. So, an interesting move here.
Yeah, and I suspect this will be a regular theme over the coming months, as dealers and manufacturers look at representation, their current and future representation. There will be exits from some franchises. There will be exits from some groups. It works both ways, doesn't it?
It does. It does. I mean, the good thing with this is obviously they're in talks with the staff. It's obviously not an immediate move. It's a planned move over this year and next year. And there's already saying that over 90% of the employees impacted by the move have been offered alternative roles at other dealerships within the group. So the good thing is that there is a lot of dealerships in this northern area that JCT do represent. So it shouldn't be too difficult to find those roles.
And finally, heading over to Motor Trader, the headline there is "Car buyers prefer sales staff to be dressed smart, not casual." Discuss.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of them, isn't it? Business attire,
Yeah.
casual, smart, black tie. This week I had a conversation with a colleague that attended the Motor Trader Independent Awards, and there was a lot. He said there was a lot of people in that took it literally of a black tie, that they were wearing a black tie. It wasn't a dicky bow, whereas my age, it's probably thinking somebody says black tie, it's a dicky bow. It's but no. So it's a great survey, this, and
Yeah.
it's done by Judge Services. I know you were involved in terms of writing this, but it's
Yeah.
fantastic findings.
This really did interest me, and as you said, I did work very closely with Judge Service on getting the press release out for this one. I haven't actually seen any research like this before, where customers are actually asked, "What would you prefer sales staff to be wearing?" And talking to Neil Adley, the chief exec of Judge Service, he was telling me that it was prompted very much by you know we just need to go back a month or so, if you can remember back that far, Phil, when we still had that hot summer weather, and through the summer months, a lot of dealer groups across the country were allowing staff to dress down and wear polo shirts rather
Yes,
than
yeah.
collars and ties, because it was so hot, even allowing for showrooms being air conditioned. Staff still need to go outside to the forecourt, and it was incredibly hot. So this prompted Neil to actually find out, to ask the question, what do customers actually think, and how do they want sales staff to be attired? So the research covered over 3,000 car buyers, and it's for the forthcoming State of the Nation 3 report. And it found that nearly half of these buyers actually have a view on what's appropriate apparel for sales staff. So shirts and ties are the first choice for most. That was 25%, followed by polo shirts at just 18%, while that sort of full-on uniform, full suited and booted look, only appealed to a tiny majority of buyers at 3%.
Yeah, and I suppose the uniform bit is we've all gone through it, that sort of fixed uniform, the tie and everything else that you do wear. And there's always this question. I mean, I've ran obviously dealerships through my career, and you kind of, how much of the range do you let go? You say, okay, you can wear whatever tie you like. You don't have to wear a corporate identified tie. Let me tell you, you get some interesting ties at that point.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it is where that line gets drawn, and we through the career, you've seen people that have gone, like say, through this casual, did it without a tie, the open collar kind of look, but still suited, and a shirt there, but open collar. Then it went into obviously that winter period, a summer period where you supplied corporate polo shirts. And it's, I don't know, you like you say, I mean, there is a fascinating and probably makes the point very well from Neil in this, that trying to differentiate who's the customer and who's the salesperson or the representative of the business really makes the point very well, doesn't it?
Yeah, it is a really good point that he makes there, because if everyone's wearing polo shirts, certainly over the course of the summer months, how do you differentiate staff from buyers? And it kind of reminds me of a time when I used to wear a suit to work, and I'd go down to the high streets lunchtime, go into Next or whatever, and be mistaken for a sales assistant because I was wearing a suit.
Yes. Yeah.
So it does kind of work both ways.
Yeah. No, it is, and I said it right at the start there that my son starting a new job, and they've said smart casual. What does that mean? Does that, and you kind of say, well, it doesn't really mean trainers, ripped jeans, and a t-shirt, but it means smart. What do you mean smart? Do I have to go out and buy a three-piece suit and a shirt and tie? No. But it's that perception of it, isn't it, that you get in with all of this.
Yeah, it actually means, how far can you push the envelope?
And I do. I've done it recently. Somebody said, be smart, smart business attire for this meeting. Does that mean I can wear chinos, or does it not mean I can wear chinos? Does that? I don't know. It's open for debate, this one.
It means putting a shirt on.
It means putting a shirt on and a jacket. Doesn't it? That's what it does.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's. I mean, as you said right at the start of this release, I've never seen a survey asking these kind of questions before. They do sort of go into, the difference, obviously, for the more prestige brands as well. Between those franchise, would you expect different from a prestige dealer to a mainstream dealer to an independent used car dealer? If you walk into a car supermarket, are your expectations different than walking into a Porsche dealership? It's this kind of thing that where is that what customers' expectations are.
Yeah, and certainly more on that in the State of the Nation 3 report when it comes out. And I think Neil's keen to come on to the show to tell us about some of the results in that. So hopefully we'll hear from him in a couple of weeks' time.
He'll be sat there with a shirt and tie on once.
Yeah.
Comes on. But no, it's right. And I think the key is you don't want salespeople looking like they're being dragged through a hedge backwards, do you? So that's what you don't want. But yeah, I mean, again, lots of stories in. We always say, do please head over to the media platforms that we've mentioned for more details on the stories that we have covered, and obviously other stories that continue to cover. As you said right at the start of the show, don't miss the YouTube video from the car dealer awards, Power Awards, with the duo there with Batch and James. And great, well done again to Julian Stockton and the team down at Angus McKinnon there. Great work for you guys there. And again, the Robert Forrester interview that Curtis mentioned earlier. Do try and catch up on that one. It's a great and open interview there with Robert Forrester, as always.
But that's all for now. You've been listening to the weekly Motor Trade Radio podcast powered by eBay Motors Group. Many thanks for joining us for all the chatter that matters. We're back with the headlines next weekend. Until then, it's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from him.